Welcome back, students. This is Cap coming to you from Prague, and you're listening to another episode of the Yap and Cap podcast. However, in today's episode, it will be just me, Mr. Cap. Um, so in today's episode, we are diving into an important macroeconomic concept. We're diving into inflation. Specifically, we're going to explore how global events like the ongoing war in Yemen are causing cost push inflationary pressures worldwide. This conflict may seem distant, but it's actually contributing to rising prices here in the Czech Republic. So, here's some background on the situation. Yemen has been embroiled in civil war since 2014 as the Houthi rebel group battles the internationally recognized government for control of the country. In the recent months, the fighting has, however, escalated. The Houthis have deployed armed drones missiles to attack commercial ships sailing in the nearby Red Sea. In response, major shipping companies like Denmark's Maersk and Germany's Hapag-Lloyd have halted operations in the sea. This disruption is causing massive supply chain problems as the Red Sea is a key global trade route between Asia and Europe. Around 10% of all international trade passes through this narrow waterway every year. With shipping companies now avoiding the region, the cost for ocean freight have skyrocketed. When transportation costs rise, producers pay more to import raw materials and export finished goods. These higher expenses get passed along from businesses to consumers, resulting in across the board price increases. Here in the Czech Republic, we import over 80% of our oil and gas. So, as energy prices have pretty much spiked worldwide, Czech fuel costs have risen too. The global wheat shortages caused by droughts and the Ukraine war have also driven up food prices by nearly 20% this year. Um, the takeaway is that inflation, while seeming abstract, has very real global causes. Right now, geopolitical conflicts like Yemen are disrupting international trade and driving cost push inflation higher across many economies. As economics students, you can now see how global supply and demand dynamics directly impact prices here at home. Even though Yemen's civil war is thousands of miles away, it's contributing to the inflation Czechs are experiencing today. Um, so, as inflation heats up here in the Czech Republic and around the world, central banks are deploying monetary policy tools to cool down consumer prices. Their key mechanism is for fighting inflation. Sorry, their key mechanism for fighting inflation is raising interest rates. Well, here's how it works. When inflation goes up, the central bank step in to raise interest rates. In the Czech Republic, the Czech National Bank recently hiked its key rate to 7% in response to surging inflation. Higher interest rates impact the economy in a few key ways. First, they make borrowing more expensive, and this reduces spending power for consumers and businesses, dampening demand for goods and services. Lower demand can take pressure off prices. Secondly, higher returns on saving and cash discourage immediate consumption. This is because when rates rise, consumers tend to save more and spend less. Again, reduced demand can bring down inflation. And finally, um, thirdly, higher interest rates strengthen the local currency, which means it makes it more stable. Um, Foreign capital often flows into countries with rising rates, boosting the exchange rate. A stronger currency makes imported goods cheaper for local buyers, uh, which, as I said, it improves the price stability. Well, so in summary, Raising interest rates reduces demand in the economy, encouraging consumers and businesses to pull back spending. This helps tighten the money supply and bring down costs all across the board. The downside is that hiking rates also slow down economic growth. But central banks see taming high inflation as crucial, even if it means accepting a period of sluggish growth. They would rather take control of this situation. The goal is to overall avoid runaway inflation that could destabilize prices, savings, and consumption. Um, Moderate inflation is acceptable, but double digit inflation, where the inflation is significantly higher, can be catastrophic. So, the next time that you hear about interest rates and interest rate hikes, know that central banks are using this monetary policy tool to counteract rising inflationary pressures through often unpopular rate hikes. Though often unpopular, rate hikes aim to restore price stability. I hope this breakdown of how central banks fight inflation was clear. Um, Please let me know if you have any other suggestions for explaining any complex economic concepts. Well, that wraps up our exploration of inflation, its global causes, and how central banks try to tame it. Inflation may seem like a dry economic concept, but it impacts our daily lives in big ways. From the gas pumps to the grocery store, rising prices pinch everyone's wallets. So it's important to understand what's driving inflation, both globally and locally. As we've discussed, conflicts like Yemen's civil war can restrict trade and energy supplies worldwide, pushing costs higher across supply chains. And central banks use tools like interest rate hikes to curb demand and stabilize prices when inflation surges. The key takeaway that I would like you to remember is that the economy is incredibly complex, with many interconnected parts. To grasp what's happening with inflation and the other macro concepts, you have to examine both the international events and domestic policies influencing them. Um, Economics illuminates the big picture, it forces shaping our financial lives. I hope breaking down inflation gave everyone a better sense of what's behind the numbers. And that's a wrap on this episode of Yap and Cap. As always, let me know any topics, ideas, or ways we can explain complex econ ideas for you guys more clearly. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time, Yappers.